Welcome, everybody. This is Rick DiClemente with another episode of Astrology Unplugged, coming to you from the Pittsburgh area with friends from all over the world. I think this is episode 8 tonight. We're glad to have you. Tonight we're going to be talking about a myriad of subjects that come from a lot of my readings. One of the things I do think we're going to need to do, one of the challenges of Unplugged is I really would like to read each person's chart. Karen can show you that, but she's been through so many of my classes, and she can tell you how valuable that is when we have the time to go through each person's chart. But since there are 100 seats here, I don't know how viable that's going to be. We will do what we can, but I think in the next week or two I am going to ask for somebody to be a guinea pig. And it won't be anything drastic, but it should be a good example. You need to see how I read a chart, and you will learn a lot from how that chart expands. Hello, Suzanne.
Hi.
Welcome aboard. Okay, tonight we're going to be talking about a lot of issues that are general, but I've got a couple example charts, and I think you're going to learn a lot about deeper astrology. We will go some nights light, some nights medium, some nights deeper, depends on how it comes out. Tonight we're going to be talking about not getting caught looking in the outer world, but looking inside. We're going to talk about people who you've heard this one before. As soon as I get things right in the outside world, I'll be okay. As soon as I get the job right, we'll get married. As soon as I get the right job, then things will be all right with me. This illusion, how this works astrologically. We're going to talk a lot about martyrdom. You wouldn't believe how strong a case there is there. How many people were starting to break out of it now? How many people are bringing forth with them from a past life this theme of they got to be martyristic. They can't think of themselves. They have to think of everybody else. And boy, is that pervasive. We may talk some about codependency, but the main theme I wanted to talk about tonight is this whole inside-outside issue. I have some samples I'm going to bring up. And if you do feel like you have a related question or comment, feel free to unmute yourself and comment, or else you can chat to each other or to all of us with the chat box on the bottom of your screen. The inside-outside. This came about from years of training, of reading all astrology books. I'm sure you all have. That you want to know about your sex life, you want to know about your relationship, you want to know about your money, you want to know about your career, you want to know about your brothers and sisters, and all these areas are represented in astrology charts. And when you're new, it's very confusing because all of these parts of a chart hold some truths, some clues. It's very, very cryptic and not simple at all to unwind. Well, I'm just telling you that after many years of being wrong, being semi-right, eventually becoming more right, what you end up finding out is really not outside of you, it's inside. So and I'm going to give you examples of this, and this is one of the reasons I want to do readings for you of specific charts and walk you through how this unfolds. I just did a reading with Karen today, who's the Karen in the blue. I just read for her 3 hours ago, and we started to talk about some things outside of her. She's writing a book, and some things were coming together with the book, and some things weren't coming together. And then we look, and she has a partner, and we could look at her house, and we could look at her money, we could look at her car, and all this stuff. And I don't really go into any of that. I think one reason is it just wore me out. I think secondly, it's more important to work on the inner person. And what I've learned And when I say learned, I mean I've got hundreds of charts I've seen it in, or else I wouldn't use that word. When the inner self gets straight, the outer self will work. And I'm trying not to be evangelical or sound like a monk somewhere on top of a mountain, but it really is about, are you being yourself? Are you able to be yourself? And we all walk around nonchalantly saying, well, of course I'm being myself. Until you examine closer and you find out that's not the case. There are a whole lot of us that are walking around that are not being ourselves. Why? We're holding back. We don't feel worthy. We watched our parents do it. We're afraid. We're afraid to risk. We're afraid of judgment. We're afraid of all kinds of stuff, and we hold back. And we get this myth in our mind, if we hold back, that we're going to be safe. Well, this is all changing now. It's changing, and a good astrology reading will pinpoint this. Let me give you an example. I got a person I read for years ago. I've copied the charts under the name Test to protect their name, and I'll give you an example how this works. Do you see a chart in front of you? Okay. This is a person who's in Aries, Sun opposite Jupiter, which is pretty nice, pretty rare, really. This means the person's basically pretty optimistic, kind of childlike, innocent. It's the way it's a woman. It's the way she is. But you can't be with her very long till you start to notice that all of this T-square, a T-square is a common phrase I use a lot, and I'm a very big believer in them. It's where two or more planets are opposite each other, and they're forming a triangle to a third planet or fourth planet. And in this case, what happens is the ping pong effect inside the personality from the sun's energies and Jupiter's energy and the sun and Chiron and the sun and Neptune, all these energies that ping pong back and forth the personality, they actually have an outlet down here to this Mars and Saturn. Now, you've seen people that don't have T-squares, people that just have the planets opposite planets. You've met these people, and you can sense the ping pong go back and forth in your mind. You can see it. You can feel it. And some ping pongs are heavy, and some ping pongs are not. But you can sense it. So in a lot of ways, people with the T-square have an outlet for all that ping ponging. And what happens is all that energy gets pushed through these two planets. This is why it's a T shape. Okay, here is the body, and here is the crossbar. So these planets put all their energy into this Mars-Saturn. Okay? Now, I like to come to this screen because I can see everybody. So in this person's chart, what I would have to analyze is, what do these opposing energies say? What are they about? That's a long story. There's a lot of inquiry. But all the energy gets focused through Mars-Saturn, and the Mars-Saturn are in the sign of Cancer. That's not good. Mars is in its fall in Cancer. What that means is Mars is in its exaltation, its best place, opposite in Capricorn. And when it's in its opposite sign, it's in its fall, which is its weakest place. So Mars is very dynamic. It wants to go. It doesn't want to be held back. And there are certain signs that Mars can really do it well in. Mars is fiery in Aries. It's fiery in Leo. It's fiery in Sag. It's real efficient in Capricorn. But it's too cautious in Cancer. And it's next to Saturn. So you got a double cautious nature to this person's Mars. Why is this a big deal? Take a look. This person is an Aries. What is their ruling planet? Mars. So a person's ruling planet needs to be unfettered. It needs to be free to express itself. Here's Mars in a weak sign, too cautious, and next to Saturn. Thank God it's 7 degrees away. If this Mars were too close, this person would be really hampered even further. So when you read the books, and I'm born with Mars, Saturn myself, the books will tell you, oh, this person has restricted energy, this person could have muscular dystrophy, they could have muscle problems, they are driving with their brakes on, they're their own best enemy, own worst enemy. So in fact, when you do talk with this woman, you do see she is very cautious. She used to hold herself back a lot. And my job as the interviewer is to break through all her stuff and try to figure out where this came from, how to deal with it. Very complex. It's not for the novice. So anyhow, delightful woman. Very nice, but very cautious. She's become very successful. Saturn in Cancer is a very tough position. Saturn, every 2.5 years, every 28 months, it goes through a sign, goes through a sign, goes through a sign every 28 months, goes around the whole circle of 28 years. So the people who were born with Saturn in Cancer have issues because Cancer is very cautious, Saturn's very cautious, put the two together. So Saturn is not well placed, but you have to look past the textbook. So even though she has Mars and Saturn here, which means she's taken a lifetime of a lot of caution, there's a reason she did. What I've learned through time and study is I do a lot of work now by comparing the birth chart to the past life chart. And I won't get into that now, but the past life chart is a derivative of the birth chart, and it bespeaks of where you got to. How far have you built your soul? How far have you evolved before you've taken this lifetime? So whatever the issue is, this person probably in their past life had a lot of people stopping her. You'll recall the story I told you in St. Louis on night number 1 here about the woman that couldn't get her pilot light lit. She was an Aries in St. Louis. She couldn't get the pilot light lit in her furnace. She had the man come in to work on her furnace. And that was symbolic of her lighting her light, putting out her light, lighting her light, putting out her light. Very similar to this person. So what happens when you study is you'll start to see in the past life, this person probably went through a lot of repression in the past life, whether it was inner or outer, whether it was the parents or the village, or it was her, it doesn't matter. She experienced repression. She experienced people trying to stop her, trying to put her light out. And that's probably why she designed this lifetime with those issues in mind. Because this all took a dive deep to the deep end about 6 years ago when I asked Liza, I've looked at thousands of charts, but why are they the way they are? Why? Liza being my partner. And so that's when I discovered the comparison to the past life, and I started to find truth. That the past life led us to this story you hear so often. I'm not a master at this, but I have experienced this in my own regressive hypnosis. I experienced studying with my in-between lives. I experienced with regressive hypnosis, being in between lives and being in a white citadel in the sky and being with my spirit guides and studying my past life and learning and about to take a new life. And I remember sitting with my guide and I was on the edge of a cloud and next to me was this humongous waterfall that led down and into my mother's uterus. And he said, "Are you ready to go?" And I said, "No, not ready to go," because I was going to go into a new lifetime. But you sit with the soul, you sit with the guides, and you decide what issues you need, what challenges you need in the next lifetime. So I'm just preempting here, but I'm pretty certain that this person had so many issues with caution that they intentionally designed this next lifetime, including the people in their soul group, to give her caution, to try to stop her. Issues of being stopped, issues of being too cautious. And that's why the birth chart carries forth those challenges, so that she can run smack dab into those kind of challenges in this lifetime. And as Elke can tell you, as a healer and a medical astrologer, this person's going to probably run into rheumatoid arthritis. They're going to run into muscles that can't move. Mars is the muscles. Saturn is, some would say, restriction. So there's usually restriction to the muscles, or not very fluid movement. But what ends up happening is the soul in this lifetime has so many experiences with that kind of people trying to stop them, quell them, hold them back, that eventually the soul learns, I'm the one that's doing it. I'm stopping myself. So they eventually learn to get past it, and they become an expert at that subject. And they might actually want to go work with people who are handicapped. They might want to work with people who are handicapped emotionally or physically, because they had the problem. They amplified the problem in this lifetime. They've conquered the problem. Now they mastered it. Now they care about it, and that's why they'd be a good teacher about it. So you go to the books, and the books are the old books. When you're learning astrology, will scare the hell out of you. Oh, this person's going to run into this, and they're not going to live long, and oh, they're going to have this. And boy, Elke perked up there. She's read so many of these books. You see all these stories. You know, oh, they're going to live till they're 37, and oh boy, then they're going to be shot by their mother. Oh, there's just all these curses that are full in all these books. There's so many people who haven't done their homework. So erase that, put it to the side, and what do you see? You see this person wanted that Mars there, and this person wanted that Saturn there. They wanted it there. They didn't want it too close. They didn't want it like that. They wanted it there, and that's why it's there. So when you think of your chart, and you think of Karen DeBerry, and you think, why did Karen want all this Leo, and why did she want all this Virgo? She did, because she's got both talents. Why did Karen Shanahan want this Mars opposite Uranus? I don't know exactly. I've worked on that a long time, but she did. Why did Elke have this huge T-square to Jupiter and Gemini? It's not just because she's got a tremendous amount of energy and information to disperse. There's a reason for it. So when you take these clues from the chart, you got to remember, let's go back to that chart. This person did not want to move without the caution. She could have taken a lifetime with the planets in a different way, but she chose Mars and Saturn together. Why? Well, the Mars says, I want to move, but I'm in Cancer, so I want to move carefully so I don't step on anybody's toes here in the family. I don't want to hurt people close to me, so I want to move cautiously so I'll hurt somebody. That's what the Mars in Cancer says. What does the Saturn in Cancer say? Be cautious. Do people love you? We see the Saturn huge in Trump's chart next to Venus, where he's frozen emotionally. So Saturn in Cancer she's being cautious again. So she's come into this life with this great amount of caution, but you can't see it like she's got a curse. Your planets are exactly where they need to be, exactly, to the degree, even to the nth of the degree. Now, another example of a chart I call test number 2. Very similar story. Once you start to see many of these, you'll start to see the point. Do you see this chart now? With Neptune at the top, Saturn at the bottom? Can you see that? Okay. This is a very trying aspect because the two planets are along the midheaven axis, the midheaven and the nadir, and you notice they make a T-square to Venus and Pisces. Neptune opposite Saturn. Instead of ping-ponging back and forth, they have an outlet through Venus and Pisces, which happens to be, in my opinion, the nicest planets you can have is Venus and Pisces, because Venus is your receptive nature and Pisces is totally open. So usually people with a Venus and Pisces, let alone a strong one, they have a great sense of unconditional love. What is the Saturn Neptune? Well, it means a lot of things, but mainly since Neptune is your spiritual sense and Saturn is your down-to-earth sense, especially in Taurus, and Neptune is so divinely inspired in Sagittarius, this person, I've seen this many times, is I've got spiritual belief. No, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't. I believe. No, I don't. I believe. I'll believe when I see it. Do you see this battle going back and forth and back and forth? This is coming about because this person's past life, whatever reason, there was this issue about believing but not believing, believing but wanting to taste it and see it and feel it. Okay, now we don't know why. It could be because this person had great spiritual belief, but the rest of the family poo-pooed it. It could be because this person had no belief, but the rest of the family did. But the whole issue of turn it on, turn it on, turn it on, turn it off is huge, huge, central to the personality because it goes up and down the midheaven. And any time during transits, current planets, anytime planets get to here or here or here or here, this issue is going to become paramount. She's going to have spiritual crises. Do you believe or don't you? But the point is, in the books, oh, this is a person with weak energy. Oh, this is a person that can't move. This is a person who's depressed all the time. This is a person who's sour and pessimistic, and it's got really some nasty things to say about traditional Saturn and Neptune. This person put them there because that's exactly where they wanted them. Why? These are the kind of mentalities, the kind of mental thoughts and patterns that you have to ask yourself. 90% of learning to be an astrologer is learning how to ask yourself the right question. And you don't do that right away, LP. You go on a lot of wrong trails at first. You just do. It's not simple. She wants to believe. She does believe. She also is cautious and wants to stay at home. She believes, and you got to take the ors out of astrology and put the ands in there. She has tremendous faith in the world, in life. But by God, she wants her house secure, 5 locks on the door, and nobody's got directions to her home. Do you see the point? She's got both. She's got both, and this probably comes from a past life where she was unable to resolve this issue. So what did she do in this lifetime? She put it front and center, but this time she said, I know how I'm going to solve this. And do you all see how she's solving it? Through Venus and Pisces. I'm going to solve this by having unconditional love for other people. As a matter of fact, Venus in Pisces is in the first house, not the other house, seventh. Self-other, self-other. She's going to solve it by having unconditional love for herself. That's the way out of this chart. I'm not going to give up this fight. I'm ready to tackle this fight. And I will tell you this, that this person's going through a major breakthrough right now, or we wouldn't be seeing this. The chart would not reveal itself. The person's on the table right now, working through these issues. But you can see where the books themselves would say, well, she's got this affliction. That terrible word, affliction. They got that major affliction with the malcontents. What's the word? The malefics. The great malefics. The bad guys, Saturn and Mars. The malefics. And then the benefics, Jupiter and Venus. They're the good guys, Mars and Saturn, the bad guys. I mean, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. All these things have their place. So what's really going on with this person is this person has these spiritual interests, but she's not sure of them. So she's got to become sure of them. I mean, how does faith become stronger except through experience? So she will have all these issues in this lifetime of people deceiving her, people letting her down, which is really what she's doing to herself. And she's trying to use that Venus in Pisces to learn about self-love, and she's probably projecting it outward, which means she's trying to solve it out by being so nice to everybody out there. Try to be so loving and unconditionally loving everybody out there. So this whole dynamic is what's at play. We don't know the exact way it's going to manifest till we talk with her, but we now know the central parts of the chart. So when you look in your chart, you see Mars squared to Pluto. You see Sun squared to the Moon. You see planets that people say are troubled. Oh, I've got 3 planets opposite me. Look at Georgia O'Keeffe. I looked at last night, the great artist. Georgia O'Keeffe. I'm going to her home in January is one reason I looked at it. Triple Scorpio with the Sun opposite Pluto across the ascendant. Sun, Moon, rising in Scorpio, with the Sun and Moon almost exact, both opposite Pluto across the ascendant. And you wonder why this woman was such a phenomenal. Thank you. Somebody's got their mic on, and there it is. Okay. So you look at charts like that, and you see such phenomenal trials. This woman put them exactly where they needed to be. She's vibrating at a level that's much higher than most of us. So, hi, John. So when you think of your chart, and the disadvantage I have and we have is that I don't have each of your charts open, which I want to start to correct. We don't know how fast the group will grow if we stay relatively small like this. What I can do is do the chart and perhaps turn the recording off. We will talk and see what you prefer to do, because I think you'll gain much by seeing your own chart. Okay, the next thing. People are obsessed with their story. Their story, my relationship, my job, my car, my bill, my house. And it's understandable because you got to be with yourself all day and you got to deal with yourself all day. But once you can take a step away from your story, what are you left with? You're left with, how is the relationship here? How is the relationship here? What I call it, the inner child, what is it, transactional analysis? The inner child says, I want to go have ice cream and go to the playground. And then the committee up here says, well, that would be fine. Go to the playground. And the healthy person in transactional analysis, there's a child and there's an adult. There's nothing else. The child and the adult. That's a healthy person. That's rare. Well, I want. I like, look at that. That's a child. The adult's only purpose is, only one purpose, is safe to cross the street. It's not safe. The adult takes care of the child, not the critical adult who starts to judge the child. The critical adult can be created or be created for you, and in which case it becomes, no, you can't go have that, you're bad. So then the transactional analysis, the analyst has to start to separate those pieces. But 95% of the stuff I see is the inner child is saying something, and the analyst, the committee up here, or the adult up here, is not listening. It says, shut up. It's shoved back down. It's too afraid, but something bad's going to happen to you. Just all this stuff going on. Then you wonder why things are working in their life. It's not because of the garage. It's not because of the girlfriend. It's not because of the job. It's because you can't even, the child is the self. The inner child is the self. That's why we love children so much, and we all perk up when we see an innocent dog, and then we see an innocent little kid. I mean, we're seeing pure innocence. Just act freely. And you need the adult there so they don't run into traffic. So astrologically, I hear all the stories, and the more I hear about problems at work, problems with the car, problems with money, problems with the house, I know automatically that the flow is not happening. An inner child is much more than just an inner child. The inner child is your connection to source. All these words, God, Holy Spirit, the universe, Spirit, all this stuff, whatever life has got to flow up through you and be able to come out and blossom. You know, when you meet these delightful people, you've seen these delightful people in your life, and they're like a lit flower, aren't they? They're just lit, and you're not sure what, but you like being around it. Like the nectar's coming off the leaves. Then you meet these people that are, and you want to get away. Simple. Their life energy's stuck. What are you healers doing? Trying to get people unstuck. Whether it's what Karen has done with cell recovery, what Elke does with all her medical work, what Karen DeVary's doing with all her cranial work and all this different work, psychologists trying to get us unblocked. The unblocked is very simple, is that the life force is trying to get up through. So that's what's in the astrology chart. Symbols. And where we get off is we get trained to look at, well, I got Venus in Pisces, and what kind of boyfriend should I have? I mean, these nonsensical things, the way astrology has evolved. Fortunately, there are enough now who are becoming more and more talented with Jungian studies and the shadow. We're starting to come together. We're getting smarter. Yes, Elke's been trivialized way too much. Thank God they were there, because they kept astrology alive. Thank God the ego's there. That's what kept it alive. I'm a Capricorn. Don't let anybody mess with Capricorn. I got a chain around my neck. It's got a Capricorn symbol. That's what kept it alive. Plus, we all had a notion that some of this is true somehow. So, when you look at your chart and you find trouble spots, now dealing with daily transit's a different story. But in the natal chart, if you see trouble spots, those are the themes that you put in your birth chart on purpose. John's got very strong Mercury Pluto. Mercury is opposite Pluto. When I met him, Pluto was here. He's got the huge Mercury Pluto in his chart. I met him, Pluto was here, making a right angle to both, which meant Jon is now ready to solve that Mercury-Pluto issue, and I'm one of the weapons and one of the tools he can use, or that's why I came into his life. Mercury-Pluto, Mercury being in the mind, Pluto being that awesome collective force of evolution, the deep analyst, the psychologist. Something in Jon's past about his mind, something about people outside of him in his past life telling him he wasn't strong enough mentally, or they were strong and he just felt like he wasn't strong enough mentally, but there was a mental challenge in the past lifetime, and he's been dealing in his own way, and now that Pluto is here, squaring the two, it means that now he's at a fulcrum. He's got it balanced. He doesn't have it solved yet, but he's really taking a grip of these issues and trying to deal with it. So what I'm trying to say all in all here, you wouldn't believe how when I deal with so many non-astrologers that know a little bit, they wear their charts like hair shirts. They just think they got albatrosses around their neck. And it's such a curse. That's why I got into astrology. In 1971, a woman said, "You've got a grand cross. You're going to have hardships all your life." And I do have a grand cross. That's 4 planets, northeast, south, and west. And I went, well, you got all the power here, and I don't know anything, and I have no idea or way of knowing whether you're right or not. So about 7 years later, I started studying, and I found out she was right. Well, it's been a challenging life, but I've seen plenty of people with grand crosses that didn't have a life of hardship. So in the beginning, and it's a very dangerous thing to have just this much knowledge of astrology. It's very dangerous because you don't know how much weight to put on it. You don't have enough charts in your experience to see it clearly. It may not be that big of a deal. But what I want to say to you is, when you are having periods in your life where you're having a hard time with the rent, or a hard time finding your life direction, that's the most common one. I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know where to go. You need to see an astrologer. I would recommend and try to find out what the blockage is about. Because when you're looking up a mountain, and this is very much a Capricorn story, you're looking up a mountain of 100 steps, and you're trying to find out what it looks like from the 50th step. You can't see what it looks like from the 50th step because you're on the first step. There's no way you can see it. And people say, I don't want to go up step 2 and 3 and 4 and then find out that the 30th step is gone. Waste my energy. Well, what do you suggest? Sending a drone? A bird? You have to go. And people are sitting there and they're suffering, trying, banging their head. I can't figure out what I'm supposed to do. I can't figure it out. Well, you're not going to figure it out because you're not moving. And 70% of those people will have no ability whatsoever to know what their life direction is because they haven't found the blockage. What's blocking you? And once the blockage is moved, even a little bit, move the blockage a little bit, either a little bit to the side. The universe starts helping you move it around. Then you start to see. You start to feel a glimmer. You start to feel like yourself again. Then you start to know, and the universe starts to help you. But it all starts with finding out what the blockage is. Now, where we get screwed up in many ways is we're so hard on ourselves. Well, how long's that blockage been there? And I've been so bad. How could I let that be? And I should have known better. And we're just impossible with ourselves. Instead, how many of you raise your hand? How many of you know, in terms of your evolution, what your next block or two really should be, what your shovel really should be working on? How many of you know really what your area is? You really know it. It's no big mystery. I don't know why you don't work on it, but I've found out is you're not ready, or you'd be working on it. Today, Karen DeBerry and myself found a repetitious pattern I've been reading for 10 years. And I found a way of announcing to her that the chart was showing that she's ready to go forward. And she wasn't ready a year ago. She wasn't ready 2 years ago, 5 years ago. She just wasn't ready. There's nothing worse than going on a trip when you're not ready. It ain't going to happen. So, the biggest thing I've learned is find out what the blockage is and ask for help. Not I'm going to go to a convent for 40 years. Not I'm going to give you my firstborn. Just say, I don't know what to do. It's just so difficult. I don't know what to do. Please help me. You might call it calling the universe, whatever you'll call it. And I will guarantee you will get miraculous help. Show me a different way of looking at things, whatever you'll call it. They didn't keep repeating that in the Bible for nothing when they said, whatever you need, just ask. Whatever you need, just ask. That is the truth. Think about that. It's not because you're invoking magic. It's because you're on the right track and you're dealing with the issue. Like I say, as I go in and out of focus, and this camera's, okay, there it is. You don't have to move the boulder. You just need to have the intent to start moving the boulder. And what many of us do is, God, it's just too much. I give up. I can't move that whole thing. And I've got to conquer the next 99 steps all at once. No, you don't. Go up 2 or 3 steps. Go up 4 or 5 steps. If step 6 is bad, jump over it. The higher you get, the more you see the forest. Things start to work. You have to start moving. So, identify what the blockage is. And as you identify the blockage, you don't have to fix it. This is another major issue I've found. Humans find a problem they want to fix. Well, it's not a gasket, in your car. It's a gestalt of complex energies in your psyche. And you don't walk out tomorrow, twist a wrench, and fix it. You don't need to fix it. You just need to be aware of what you're doing. Just be aware. Awareness has gotten so much abuse, that word. Be aware that you're starting to stop yourself. I dealt with a client 2 days ago. He was going to go ride his bike. He said, no, I better go home and wash the dishes so the house will be in order for the wife. Be aware when you stop yourself. The worst thing you can do in astrology is stopping yourself. That doesn't mean leave the dishes for everybody else. It just means that when that joyful part of you wants expressed, let it express itself. Now, I tell you where I'm at now. I have other things on my list, but I think I would rather stop the recording now and open the rest of the evening up to discussion where it's just us privately and we can get into these issues. If need be, I can look at some of your charts. Well, I want to talk about this because it is a, what is the word? It's common disaster. It's an epidemic. It's an absolute epidemic that people feel so stuck. People screaming at me, I'm stuck. And I tell them the only way you're stuck is if your hand's under a rock. Then you're stuck. You're holding on. You may not think you are, but you are. I'm not judging it because I do it too, but that's what you got to become aware of. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording because it's my show.